KLTV sound check. KLTV sound check.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday meeting of the VOCC. We have Valley View Church here with us today. We're grateful to have the pastor lead us in prayer.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, for the invocation today. All who are willing, let us bow our heads in reverence and unity. Heavenly Father, we gather in this chamber still heartened by the renewal of the Easter season. We thank you for the beauty of Cowlitz County and the privilege of serving the people who live between our mountains and rivers. All these commissioners, as they take up the mantle of leadership today, we lean on the wisdom of your word. Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, not as working for the Lord, or as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Lord, grant this board the endurance of a resurrection spirit as they tackle the challenges before them. May the hope of the season translate into a tireless energy for public service. We ask for your guidance to rest upon these deliberations today, giving them the strength to work diligently for the flourishing of every citizen, from our busiest streets to our quietest rural roads. We pray specifically for unity. Help us to look past what divides us and focus on the common bond that we all share as neighbors. Soften hearts where there's friction and provide clarity where there's confusion, so that every decision made today is rooted in integrity and a sincere desire for the common good. Let our work today reflect the grace that we've received. May our efforts bring lasting peace and prosperity to our community. In the name of the risen Savior, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. For those that join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Give you a quick peek at the agenda today. At 9:30, we do have a continuation of that public hearing on the vacation of a portion of that Totiff Road that was down in Kalama. At 10, we have ITN. They're just going to give us a update on compliance, ADA compliance thing that they need to get squared away. Okay. And ask for a motion on the minutes of March 30th and 31st.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of March 30th and 31st.
Any questions, comments on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Agreements, contracts, bid awards. Under agreements, Public Works, we have two of them. One was a contract execution and bond in lieu of retainage with Quirton Brothers for the Tower Road Bridge at Rock Creek project. That bid on that project was $2,683,000, $985. An agreement with Special Deputy Prosecutor Services, Daniel P. Kinney, to provide some professional service to Public Works and facilities onto communications. Resolutions, we have two of them. We're part of what they call a CRAB board. I don't know what the acronym. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. And if we have projects that we want to ask them for funding or help from them, we have to have a resolution on these projects. It doesn't mean that we'll get money for it or they'll be done, but so we have two resolutions in to present through them. One is County Road Project 821 is Mill Creek Bridge. It's $800,000 project. And the other one is County Road Project 822 Whitewater Road Curve Improvement Project, and that's a $90,000 project. Letters notices, contract completion letter, Western United Civil Group LLC for Garlock Road. The Fish Creek Passage has been completed. Correspondence, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission regarding the order approving annual wildlife habitat at management plan. Another one from FERC regarding 2020 gate inspection report, recommendations, plans, and schedule dates for SWIFT, number 1. Letter dated 4/7/26 to Brian Evola, reappointing him to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, representing Waste Management. 2-year term expires at end of March 2028. Letter dated 4/7/26 to Alina Jukes, appointing her to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, representing agriculture. 2-year term expires in March 2028. And we have vouchers in the amount of $2,454,366.90. Any questions, comments on consent? Okay, seeing none, I ask for a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve consent agenda. Last chance. Okay. Seeing none, we call for a vote. Those in favor? Aye. We have one motion item.
Morning, Commissioners. Patrick Harbison, Public Works. Motion item before you today is the bid award for the Camelot large on-site sewer system. This is to replace the existing septic system at Camelot. We bid it once, rejected all bids as we received only 2 bids and we didn't feel that they were adequate. And so we rebid it, received 9 bids, with the winning bid being $799,519.84.
Any questions on that project?
What's the time frame on that? You know? We'd be probably breaking ground in about 6 weeks.
Could expect it to be completed by,
End of summer.
okay.
It should only, I believe it's about a 4 to 6 month project.
Any questions? Seeing none? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval of Public Works number 6, the bid award for the Northwest Construction General Contracting for Camelot Lost Project.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. One last call for comments, if any. Okay, seeing none, we call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Patrick. Made your day easy today, huh? Okay, it could be fairly quick today. We do have public hearing at 9:30, but we can open the floor if you have any questions. Okay. Not seeing anything from the public. We're all good.
Morning, Commissioners. Since there isn't any, just an item, could Patrick tell us a little bit about the technology on that sanitary waste, if that is, what kind of technology is being used on that?
Is your microphone on? There it is. Thank you.
Since the microphone was off.
I'm worrying about continuing maintenance, upkeep beyond just the initial installation that the county bears burden for.
So the question was, what's the technology being used for the on-site septic? So this is a current septic system that we currently operate and maintain. It's been in place since the mid-80s as a Mount St. Helens replacement that we operate as one of our public sanitary sewer systems. It handles 55 connections from that mobile home area. It's not a park. Those are individual lots. We also have a water system in that area. This is not real new technology. It enters into normal septic tank, does secondary treatment in another septic tank through some filters, and then pumps up to the field, which distributes it systematically through the various pipes. I can't think of the stuff right now. There's not a lot of maintenance in addition to what we were already doing for it.
Okay, so it's a pumped distribution through a in-ground a system, kind of traditional sanitary disposal.
This is very, very similar to what you would see at a house,
Okay.
only 10 times bigger.
Right.
The field itself, I believe, is 3.5 to 4 acres.
So that's interesting. Is that, I'll say technology again, been approved because it's kind of grandfathered? Or if you were building a new one, I don't think you'd be able to do that.
No, you can't. That's why it's called a large on-site septic system. So there is some, it's allowed by ecology. It's a special permit, has to have special designs. And we do have ongoing monitoring requirements that we currently do, but this just carries right over into the new one.
Okay, very good, just interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is this one we inherited from a developer?
This is one we inherited from Mount St. Helens eruption.
Oh, from the eruption?
So when it destroyed the
Yeah,
old
I
park
remember
in
it
Cooks Ferry.
destroyed all of Camelot pretty much.
Yep. They put the new park up where it's at now.
Yeah.
We took over the water and sewer for those systems, so.
Okay, I got you. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll make it easy on you. We got hearing at 9:30. Till then, we'll just recess till 9:30. Okay, we'll come out of recess and pick up a matter that we tabled and we're picking back up today. It's a vacation of a portion of Totiff Road. So, and I'll let you just kind of
Good morning, County Commissioners. Anna Lunde, Cowlitz County Public Works right-of-way agent. Today, we are continuing a discussion for public hearing on the order of vacation of a portion of Totiff Road, which is essentially the driveway entrance to 220 Totiff Road through the water line of the Columbia River, essentially about 152 linear feet of central line. We have Eric Yakovich here, who is prepared to speak on behalf of the Port of Kalama, and I am here to answer questions.
a so from the driveway of 220,
Yes, at the divergence of
and that would be
the Port of
is that-
Kalama's, correct,
So right there.
yes.
Okay.
So it looks like that goes all the way down to the riverfront.
Correct.
What was the purpose that was in there to begin with? What's the history of that?
Historically, it was waterfront access for a thoroughfare between Oregon and Washington with, my understanding, it was originally a sternwheeler. It was not a ferry boat, but it was thoroughfare between the two states. Eventually, it was purchased by the Totiff family and used over the decades as a drop-in for various gill netting operation boats. In 1934, Peter Totiff established it as a road because multiple entities were accessing their properties through it. So he dedicated and established Peter D. Totiff Road starting in 1934. Several years ago, the port purchased it from the Totiff Trust.
So there's a boat launch down there of some type?
I believe there are 2 site addresses plus a private Tidewater Drive that accesses off of Totiff Road past Hendrickson.
But there's not a boat ramp or anything there right now.
Correct. It's been privately used over the last decades, as far as I'm concerned. With personal use, there's never been public access utilized actively.
Besides that location, where else in the county do we have county access to the river?
I am unaware of the answer. I'll ask Patrick Harbison, who is also with Cowlitz County Public Works. On Public Works.
Public Work, Patrick Robertson, Assistant County Engineer, Public Works. We have multiple locations where the right of way is going to the rivers. Especially up along roads that come off of Tower Road, with the Mount St. Helens blowing, the river just blew through that area. And there are actually lots and right of ways sitting in the middle of the Toutle River. And so wherever those right of ways went in, I'm going to say we have about 6 of those.
Well, I guess my thought is I don't want to do what we did with dredge spoils and give away all the land or sell all the land or however you want to look at it. And then I'll find ourselves in trouble with not having county access to the river to deal with dredge spoils. So in that regard, if the Rainier Bridge fell in the river, where would we be able to get traffic across the river?
I'm going to let Eric speak to that because there is some state law that addresses that.
Eric Yakovich, 110 West Marine Drive in Kalama, with the Port of Kalama. As far as access to the river for dredging, there's a variety of different public access locations. They in our area, the other ones are either private or port owned. There's also Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife access to the river in a variety of locations. So as far as dredge spoil access, it's very,
I'm not worried about dredge spoil access. I'm worried about traffic. If there's no bridge across the river, if Rainier Bridge is in the river.
right, right.
And now we got to ferry people back and forth across that bridge or across the river. Either that or they got to go to Portland or they got to go to Astoria to get here.
If that were to become an issue, which that's not something we've specifically evaluated, but there are a variety of boat launches, like I say, state-owned boat launches and port properties, marina, things like that. Docks.
Speak to the, our, that discusses, cannot vacate the water.
The code under which we asked for this is RCW 3687-130. And it says that that municipalities can only vacate rights of way that end at the water for port purposes or public access, public use. This particular area is not something that's been used for, I would venture to guess, by the public 60, 80 years. I mean, far before my time, nothing in our study or in our memory has this odd piece of property being used for anything other than a driveway to that house, to the house on Todiff Road that the port purchased. It's not maintained and it's not, as far as boat access, there's a variety of debris in the water at the end of that right of way that hasn't been maintained. I think whatever was there in the past has been demolished and left in the water.
Eric, did you say the house that the port purchased, is that the old homestead home? Okay.
Correct.
220 Todiff Road. And the portion that is requested to be vacated is only the portion at that house and the water. It's not there. It stops short of today's Todiff Road right of way. So I believe there's 20 or 30 feet of the Todiff Road, the actual Todiff Road that remains even on that exit from Todiff Road for a county maintained turnaround, essentially, by the survey that the county did.
So we're just talking about where it comes off of the main Todiff Road into the trees to the river?
Yeah, yeah. It goes, I want to say it goes 30 to 40 feet down that right of way before the vacation parcel is requested.
So what's from the river to where we're going to maintain the Todiff Road, what's the distance?
From the river, the linear distance that was proposed to be vacated from the river was 152 feet, more or less. Then you would find the Port of Kalama's grain elevator entrance, then an additional 219 feet, 90 feet, and then about another 200 feet before you would even get to Tidewater Drive. So there's a substantial amount of distance between Tidewater Drive to the grain elevators entrance of their driveway, and the vacation proposed would be after that following.
So all those numbers you just gave me are all in addition to each other?
Correct.
Okay,
Sorry, I was going off of a survey, the document that you'd had.
so you're talking 200 yards?
Correct. More or less, yes.
So when I look at this colorized map you have, it looks like a road off the end of that. For something that hasn't been maintained, I'm surprised it still shows up on a picture.
I live there, so I take.
But in a public hearing, I need to get the commissioners' questions out and then we can open it up and we'll take a look at them, okay? Not trying to put you off, just trying to.
The green over there.
Oh, okay, I see. That helps me understand that.
This is where the water is. This is where it just roads.
Okay, I see that now.
And Columbia River, vacated portion, all of this is still Tototh Road. Vacation, this is the entrance to the grain elevator.
So it's right there.
This is all still Tototh Road. This is where Tidewater Drive is.
So this would stay Tototh Road to here.
Correct. So visually on here, this is where that is.
Okay,
So we are talking about over here, but what you're seeing in this is port owned, port owned, port owned, port owned, port owned.
mhm,
And this belongs to the Cerros. So Tidewater Drive is up here.
okay.
Vacated driveway to the grain elevator. All of this is still public. Tidewater Drive is up here. Tidewater Drive is up here. Little.
So before you run away. So is this picture that, like I said, on the river, that still shows, looks like a might not be a maintained road, but it looks like it goes right to the river, into the river.
That is because the dedication goes all the way there.
I'm not talking
No,
about
this
the
is-
line, I'm talking
That's
about
because it's
this.
a concrete. It has been concrete there, put in by the commercial fishermen who lived there until, so it's an obsolescent concrete pad that went down, but the family utilized it for dropping for their gill netters.
So it's got some type of a finished boat launch there. If you were launching gill netters, you sure as hell don't have just a gravel driveway going in there.
So.
Well, they weren't small boats. I don't care what year the gill netters were.
It looks like Susan Eugenius wants to speak.
Okay,
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. I put in the chat for you the specific RCW that we're talking about that allows this vacation, and the only reason it allows it is because it is a port. The only other allowable use would be to vacate it for a boat moorage or something else within the park system. So I included the RCW. If there are any typos, that's because I'm an engineer and I type too fast, so I apologize. But the other thing we're looking at, to Commissioner Farrell's point, yes, if we were to run up some unknown reason that the bridge went out, we would be looking up and down the river for a place. To my knowledge, this is the only right of way that we have that heads to the Columbia River besides where the bridge crosses currently. I do not know of another one that directly accesses the Columbia River between Woodland and Longview. So
That the county owns?
that the county owns. So we have the state right of way that goes to the Columbia where the bridge is. And this, as far as I know, this is the only county right of way that goes to the Columbia River.
what's the port's interest in this?
Well, one is the confusion of the access to the home. That there are no other homes, there's no other use of that, no other functional use of that right of way. And it's confusing. So it would resolve the access to that home. And then it's a very small sliver of property, again, unused for anything, that separates our properties. So it would be valuable for us in the future to have contiguous property rather than separated by a small parcel.
So you don't have access to the home now because of the way it is?
No, we
So-
do. We do. It's it's a private home and often, people will, there have been conflicts over access to that area. So, people will come down there as public property, which it is, it's public right of way as it stands now, will come down there and assert, you know, their right to be on the property, when it's nothing but a private home down there. And then it's true, it's public right of way at this point, but it would resolve that issue, those conflicts that take place.
I'm gonna open it as a public hearing, so, because I know we have public that wants to weigh in on this too, so we'll open public comment. Make sure the bright green light's on. There should be a button that'll turn on a light.
There we go.
There you go, okay.
Okay. Several issues with this. Mitch Searles, I live on Tidewater Drive. I'm the property that's right next to the Totof property. The original part that they're talking about, the driveway that's there, wouldn't necessarily be an issue. Other than, like I mentioned last time, this now allows the port to take what is a residential property and at some point turn it into a commercial property, an industrial property, which moves it right up next to my place. I'm the first of 9 homes back in there, so that creates a problem for us. They've said that this hasn't been active. You can't really have it both ways. They said that there's no active people down there using this. It's been vacated. It hasn't been anything since the 30s or 40s. But then he just turned around and said that there are people that go down there to try to use this because it is a public access to the river. It is the only public access between Woodland and Longview to the river there. The other part of this is that originally they said they wanted to come from the river up 120 feet. 120 feet is not necessarily an issue, but their diagram here, then she just mentioned they want to go 120 feet, then they want to go another 200 and some feet, which brings it up to where the property line is from my property up here. If they do that, they take out, if I can bring these up to you guys, I took pictures of this. Because now you're creating a safety concern. Where should I start first?
This is
So
This
This
the part
is
that would be vacant
the turnaround,
way before.
and this is the driveway that comes down. The Totof house is off of this edge. So this road comes down, it goes all the way down. They blocked it now with some containers and things down here trying to block that off. There is access down here, but also this is a giant turnaround because you have the buses that come down there. The buses won't be able to turn around if they take this and bring this out, not past that property, but up to the property line. This is facing the other way. This is the property line here. So now if you take this turnaround out, the buses are going to come down to here. They can't turn around. There's no room to turn around. So you're going to have buses trying to back across this railroad tracks. You're also going to have all of the normal services. We've had garbage disposal, stuff like that down there for 30 years. Garbage trucks, if they don't have this turnaround, if you make this private, are not going to be able to get down here to turn around and come back out. So in my mind, you create safety concern also with all this. So, and it's public access now. Like I said, my big concern is that if the port takes this over and does this, you're right, they now have access to both sides of the road. They block off the road, move it up to where the property line is. I'm sorry, where this other page.
So, yeah, where's that at on this map?
Yeah. Let's see where we at here. Yeah, so the Columbia River, right here is the 120 feet they were talking about. That is the entrance to the port grain dock. This is where they're showing blocking it off to, which is where my property line, the Totof house sits in here. My property surrounds this. So if they do this, you can see now, there's no turnaround. There's no area for buses, for anything to turn around. Because this is an active grain dock also, they have semi trucks that come down that road to go in there. Other semi trucks follow them in there. You're gonna have semi trucks now in here and there's no place for them to turn around. So they're gonna have to back out. Right here is an active railroad crossing. So creates a lot more concerns for the port. You just want to make it easy because they don't want to have people down there trying to get down to the river. There's other things they could do also with that. They are concerned with people getting to the totem property that they purchased, something like that. They could fence that off. The port fenced off the entire other side of the road. So everything from that port entrance all the way up to the railroad tracks has been fenced off right at the edge of the road. They did that back at when 9/11 happened. And I own property on the other side of that. They fenced my property off. So
You own property on the other side of the road that was fenced?
I do. I pay taxes on 5.5 acres in there, and everything that's on the other side of Totiff Road, they put in railroad tracks and things over there, and then they just fenced it off after 9/11. And so there's a 1/4 of an acre, I think it is.
I don't know square feet, but it goes up to old original Totiff Road.
Yeah.
Did some sort of adjustment, had new Totiff Road down.
Yeah, they put in new Totiff Road, so on the other side of it was where old Totiff Road was, and so I had a chunk of property over there that they never seem to talk about, that just there and fenced off, so. Also on the picture that I sent you that shows the road coming back up towards the grain dock, we came home a year or so ago, and the port has all kinds of equipment, stuff out there, dump trucks out there on the road. I walked down to ask what's going on, and they are dumping gravel over the side of the road onto my property. And I asked, hey, wait a minute, I own this property. What are we doing here? And they said, you'll have to talk to somebody at the port. So we reach out to try to find out from the port. Nobody returns our call. In one day, the port widened all that. And when I went down there to ask them why they widened that, they said, oh, we're not going to allow grain dock trucks to empty the grain dust out of their trucks in the port. So they've got to pull out of the gate onto this area where they're widening the road on my property so that they can pull out there and knock the grain dust off of their grain dock trucks. All ends up on the road there. I mentioned last time, we've got 1/4 of an inch of grain dust that ends up on all of our properties there because they supposedly were going to make this grain dock better. This summer when so one of you mentioned that I should talk to Clean Air, I will do that here this summer when the winds are blowing through there and you can see the massive amounts of grain dust coming off of it. So there are my concerns.
I'm sitting here, I guess my first thought is it doesn't sound like the port's being a very good neighbor or like you're working with the people that live there. So I guess go with that.
Well, so can I address, or I will address, I guess, some of the things that have been said. So some of these things I'm not aware of. But I think we're talking about two different polygons when it comes to what is being asked to be vacated. Because the vacation that we're asking for doesn't even make it all the way up to Totiff Road proper. So I think that there's a misunderstanding here about what we're actually asking for, because there is no issue with turnaround. It doesn't go up to the at-grade crossing for the railroad. It doesn't even come close. What we're asking for, I think maybe 120 feet from the river, just past the driveway to the private home that we purchased. And that stops short of the Totiff Road proper. So there's all kinds of room for turnaround. In fact, I think that is something that Mr. Galley, the county's surveyor, made certain to address when he surveyed this property for vacation or for consideration, let me say. As far as dust, I can't really speak to that, although I can say there's been a grain elevator there since the 1960s, and dust is part of what happens at that grain elevator for loading and unloading and movement of grains. My guess would be that former residents had dust as well. On their property. It's just the nature of the industrial area that there is dust from that industry. And there's, you know, as far as the road being widened, I don't know. I've not heard of that. I've not heard that issue. And, we couldn't do that without a permit. So, and I think there might be some confusion about what maybe the railroad does and the industry does and the port does. I think those are maybe somehow being, aggregated.
Hannah, could you do me a favor and with those pictures that he brought up, can you show me exactly where that's at on this exhibit B, please? So where the turnaround that he's showing right there? So on this, where does that go to and where does it stop?
Right here, there's a great big turn out where there's parking. And so when I'm looking at this, that would be here north.
Okay,
So all of this would be taken from about right there.
so we're only talking about this right here.
Right there is the posting. So you're over here all the way down to the water. So you are facing towards the Columbia. This right here is facing that direction.
Okay,
And then right here.
so none of this is affected right here,
Correct.
just from that post to the river.
Yes.
Okay.
And when I had verbally stated about the vacation versus what was remaining public, the hasher mark is what is being vacated. I then read the survey numbers of what was going north, which was remaining public. That was not speculated, that was not included in the potential vacation that we're talking about right now. What's proposed. All of this is remaining.
That's all,
Public
nothing,
road.
so we're not touching any of
So,
that.
yes, the port has maintained that they want all of this remaining as public road. So showing you the picture facing this way. All of this is remaining public. They want public access all the way to their grave elevator.
There's a railroad crossing at.
Way up here.
Okay.
Section. It's starting right here.
Okay.
So think of that as the same line going towards the Columbia.
Okay.
Let's do.
Yep.
Can I rebut a couple things that he mentioned, please? He mentioned that it's been a grain dock for years. It has, but when we purchased the property out there, it was a mothballed grain dock. We were told by the port that it would only be activated as a backup grain dock because they had just built the new Kalama grain dock. So we purchased property back in there. We built a home back in there. And then 10 years ago, the port came in and said, okay, we have a tenant that wants to take over that grain dock and we're going to build and increase. And I mentioned this at the last meeting. They took what was a almost non-existent grain dock and they started pushing millions of dollars into it. They built a whole new silo on the south end of it, up close to the properties. They blew the windows out of the old Totif home when they were doing that construction. You are correct. The port has not been a good neighbor to any of us down there. And they normally say this kind of same thing here. The port would have to do that with a permit. So it might be the railroad or it might be someone else that's doing that. But I personally went down there when they were dumping all the gravel and the stuff over the edge of the road to widen the road for that. And the trucks were Port of Kalama trucks. So the people that were down there were Port of Kalama people. They were the ones that told me I needed to call the Port of Kalama to find out what was going on down there. So it wasn't, we've had this a lot back and forth before. When they redid the intersection up there, we had the same thing. We were in this exact same chamber and we were talking with everybody. Pat Harden was actually here at the same time. We were talking with the county. We were talking with the railroads. We were talking with everybody. And a lot of things that they said would be done were not done. So I am very frustrated with this because the port is not a very good neighbor there. I run a trucking company and a business in this state. my business, my trucking company works with the Port of Vancouver all the time. I own property right up against the Port of Vancouver. And we have a very good working relationship back and forth there. This is very different here. So that's my concerns with all of a sudden vacating this 120 feet, if that's what it is. That's another part of this, is that the signs and the stuff there all leave this very, very vague, which I think is on purpose, as to what's going to get vacated and where. If you're going to work with a neighbor that's right there next door, and you're going to bring out somebody that's going to survey this, do all this, I would think you would talk to the people, the neighbors next door, and say, hey, let's mark where this is and what this is going to be and where. And instead, if we hadn't driven down past Tidewater Drive, we would not have even seen the signs that said this was going to be vacated and that there was this public hearing. We're the neighbor right next door. You would think we would have been notified some other way. You would have thought we would have been sent something by a mail, by something. No, if we hadn't wandered down there to see the signs. And we're very on edge about this because everything that happens down there in that area all affects us. The grain dock dust, they put the new silos in right on the property lines up against us now. So there's way more grain dust and stuff than there ever was down there. Back in the 30s, when the original grain dock was there, the only property there was the original Totev homestead. Okay, so that's not a big deal. Now there's 8 or 9 new homes in there, and there's other properties in there, other 5-acre pieces in there to be built on. So people are not going to do that if you have to deal with this. Like I said, I've got a deck on the back of my house that has been rotted out from grain dust since this new grain dock has been put in, and there's this massive amount of flying grain dock dust in the air. So. Sorry.
Supposed to be better contained or expand.
Yeah. When they were building the grain dock and doing all the new stuff, they put in writing that it was going to be quieter, that it was going to be less noise, that this was going to be a better grain dock, and it was going to contain more of this. It is far from all of that. There's a constant noise from that grain dock all the time now when they put the new silos in and all the new equipment in there. So we've talked to people down there. We've tried to have things done, and you end up with that. It's the railroad. It's not the railroad. It's the grain dock. It's the grain dock. When you talk to the port, it's like, okay, that's something that the vendor for the grain dock, what's the name of the grain dock? A Temco. It's a Temco problem. So you end up in this never-ending loop of not getting anything, and all they do is treat you poorly. So hence why we originally wanted to know what the future plan was for this, because as you can tell, if you guys vacate that piece of land there, now the port has access all the way across, even closer. So.
Well, I guess that's one of the questions in the port's previous comments I was going to ask is, if there's been a grain dock there since the 60s, does that mean there's been zero improvements or changes to it since then? Obviously not, based on what I'm hearing.
No, things improve over time. That's industry. That has been the same lineage of owners of that lease on that property since the 1960s as well. So it's a 50-year lease that it's been the same industry and the lineage of that industry that has developed that industry. And certainly they've had to keep up with technology and industry standards in order to operate. But there was never any intention to mothball that property or to discontinue it as a grain elevator. It's always operated as a grain elevator and hopefully always will.
So it never had a dormant period since the 60s? It's always been active?
It's always, you're asking about since the 60s, which I wasn't around during the 60s, but to my knowledge, it's always operated, and I've never heard otherwise. I could certainly confirm that, but I believe that's the fact.
Okay.
So here's where I'm not, I don't want to say torn, but here's where I need some clarification. Not to invalidate anything that you've said, obviously there's some issues with that you guys need to work out as neighbors with the port. But the 120 feet that we're now showing here, whether we vacate this or not, isn't going to change anything that you've brought up. So help me understand what your concern is about this 120 feet, given the fact that everything that you've stated is not going to change, right? The dust is going to remain and all those things are still going to be there. At that point, knowing that we have no control over that, what is your concern with this 120 feet outside of all the other stuff that we have nothing to do with?
Okay, so as I mentioned on the very first meeting, that road all the way to the river has separated the residences from the port. Now the port has purchased that piece of property on the other side of us, and there's still a road there that separates residents from port property. You vacate that, now all of a sudden the port has moved all the way across there. They have access all the way across to do whatever they deem possible. It now completely muddies the line from between residents and industry.
Well, they already own that property.
They do, but it's residents right now. And your road separates the residents from industrial.
Our road being this 120 feet right here?
Yeah, all the way to the river. You guys, the county owns that road all the way to the river.
But whether that piece of property or if that road is public or private, they could still develop that property behind you.
They could, yeah, but that's that's the segregation between that. It's, if you've got, in town, if I've got a residential piece and I've got a commercial piece here and there's a road between them, the road separates that and it makes it very difficult. Just because you buy the piece of property on the other side doesn't make it easy access. You're going to grant them easy access to running over there, to moving all this, to creating what is a residence and turning it into an industrial piece of property.
So that I'm clear, Hannah, help me out here. So this 120 feet that we're talking about is the only commercial stretch of that road? Or the only residential stretch of that road? Because according to what I'm understanding you say, this is all already commercial and this 120 feet is the last residential stretch of that road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's commercial all the way down. That's the county road all the way to the river. So they're wanting to take that 120 feet down there and absorb it into the port property. They've got port property on one side of it and a port that they just bought the residential property on the other side of it and take that out.
Roads are always a super easement. It's never owned fee simple like our homes would be owned. It is a super easement. It's dedicated for the use of the public. That is why counties are not able to sell road system. They can vacate it. When a vacation occurs, it goes to the property that lost it. So
If that's the
however that may be on any portion of vacated road throughout any county, it will adjoin the property that lost it.
So if it goes to the property that lost it, then I would end up with part of that because originally our property surrounded the TOTF property. When we purchased out there, we did a land swap with the original TOTFs for a piece of that because they didn't want us owning a sliver. We owned a sliver right down between TOTF Road and their property. So if it goes to who it originally was lost to, that would be me.
I would go back to the surveyors and have the surveyors respond to that.
How do you determine who lost it? Back when the road was established? Does it go back to that?
Just go back to the establishment document. That's what's normally done.
I think it's termed nomenclature. It's not who lost it, it's what parcel lost it. So the land swap, parcel, the vacation will go back to the parcel that it took it from. And since Mr. Searle's land swap, it'd be this parcel that he swapped, so it'd be the TOTF property that it goes back down to.
Which is.
Chain of
the
title with
port
legal description.
property that the port now owns.
Correct.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter if it's original or if it's gone through 100 owners then, which we do have some right of ways that are 100 owners in. It would go to the parcel that originally owned it. And if that parcel has been subdivided, it goes to the parcels right there on top of it.
Yeah. Just probably a couple thoughts. There,
Excuse me?
for the port to want that, there has to be something, and I'm not, I get there's industrial and there's business. That's what drives our economy. I also get that everybody needs to be good neighbors, but if you need that, then there's some idea of a plan in the future of what you want to develop. There almost has to be. And you have to have some thought that at some point in time, you're going to want to do something. And I haven't really had any trouble with what Port of Klamath's done down in their area. I think they've done good work. Whether they work with the neighbors all the time, I don't know. I'm not part of that. I'm hearing some of that. The other part that concerns me is what Susan said. If this is the only county access from the other side of that river, that causes me a little bit of concern, because I remember when they closed the bridge for a week up there, and we actually had a company that helicoptered people over because it was more efficient for them to helicopter than to have them drive down to cross over at Cathlamet or Astoria or the other way. So if you did have something happen to that bridge, and that bridge has issues, I mean, there's no doubting that. It has issues. How do you get people across? You'd have to set up some kind of ferry system. I don't know. It is a concern there.
Well,
To answer your first question, we don't have any specific plans with the property. We have a variety of properties in our portfolio where no specific plans exist. Of course, what we do is we develop property for economic benefit of the community. So it would serve our mission is the best I can say, but there is no specific plans. And you can check, our comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements and our strategic plans. It's not.
I'm not
addressed in
doubting you.
there.
I'm sure there's no specific plans, but
I just wanted to.
at some point in time, somebody sit down and had a cup of coffee and said, as you develop, it'd be nice to have that, because you're going to have to, as we grow, we'd
have
like
a
to have that.
continuous waterfront.
Yeah. There's always a reason. Otherwise, there'd be no issue with you. Why would you even need it? There wouldn't be a need.
I think I come down in the same place. I don't have heartfelt feelings too strong one way or the other on this, but I have pretty strong feelings about that being the only county access to the river. And I'm probably a worrywart once in a while, but I have great concern about that bridge. And how susceptible it is to problems and how it's being used today compared to the way it was when it was built.
There's been a lot of write-up recently about that bridge and about the river traffic underneath it, and if there was an issue on that. So that's it. When this originally came out, somebody said something about this being a benefit to the public to do this vacation. I asked that on last one too, and I think it's quite honestly the opposite of that. It's a benefit to the port. It's not a benefit to the public. So keeping it as a public road solves a lot of problems, and I think that's the benefit to the public, but.
One thing I want clarification on, that's given you two heartache that I'm not quite understanding. Wouldn't it, if we had to use a ferry system in that situation, we have marinas and boat docks that are already established and ready to go. Why would we even bother with trying to develop
Correct.
that?
The only benefit for a ferry system for this parcel would be you'd have to improve it. There's no way to bring a ferry into this. You would use existing marinas. You'd use existing ramps, The port has one by Ailes Point that could be utilized in some way, shape or form, the boat ramp, that kind of stuff. If you're going to put a bridge in, this piece doesn't serve the bridge. You'd be purchasing 5 properties on either side of it to put a bridge in because you're rising so fast, so high to get over the channel because the lowest bridge in the channel is Lewis and Clark Bridge. So you'd have to be higher than that. You probably, if you're looking for a bridge, you're probably looking at dike access, which is a much more established road that you can gain access and height real fast and drops down onto a 4-lane road on the other side. That kind of stuff. So you'd be looking at that type of stuff. This is the only right of way that is directly connected to the Columbia, but there are other right of ways that are close to the Columbia. Clam River Road stops within a couple 100 feet, drops into some private stuff there. Dike access actually hits the slough at the Columbia River, that kind of stuff. So there are options, but if you're talking emergency, like the bridge falls, you're looking at boat ramps, you're looking at stuff that's in existence now, in my opinion. If a long-term solution, this could be a long-term solution, but you're talking about quite a bit of money to bring it up to a standard to meet Wakaigum's ferries type stuff.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Supports, I just say it supports interest to bring facts here and not deal in conjecture or anything like that. And if it's the county's will to retain that for their purposes, then we respect that and appreciate the opportunity to bring it to your attention. You know, we saw it as a piece of property that is not maintained, a road that's not maintained, hasn't been used for many years. And so we thought there was an opportunity there. So for both of us, but like I said, we appreciate the opportunity and respect your decision.
Okay, see nothing else, we'll close the public comment. I don't know what you guys, what your thoughts are. I'll just express a couple thoughts. If it's true that there's no plans for this, then I don't even know why I'd do it because it's just causing heartache between landowners and the port. If there was a business purpose and we saw something was coming in and it could only come in because they had to have this piece and it brought economic benefit to the county and to our citizens, I'd have a different view on it, but you're telling me there's no plans for this. It doesn't do anything for you. So then I don't know why we would put that angst on the residential people.
I guess I'm of a state of mind that to balance this out with what Patrick's comments were, I'd like to see a list of potential sites for dealing with high traffic flow. If that bridge went down, where does this rate on a usability? Now, it might be difficult to get it going, but it might be the least difficult to get it going if you're trying to get something up and running. I don't know. But I'd like to see that evaluated long before we talk about vacating that.
I'm neutral. I don't see a benefit to doing it. Other than the port would acquire that piece of property. And I do agree that if it's going to create angst with our citizens, maybe work on the relationship with the port and those citizens down there as we move forward. And in the future, if it's something that is necessary for a specific project, maybe we look at it again and take a different route. Does there need to be a motion to accept or deny?
I think to keep it clean, it'd be nice to have a motion one way or the other.
Oh, you need to table it or just make a motion to drop it at this point?
Yeah, I'd say, if you don't want to do it, I'd just say, let's make a motion to decline at this point. If you can always come back in the future.
Okay, then I move to decline this resolution at this time.
Okay, we've had all kinds of public comments, so let's go straight to the vote. Those in favor of declining this?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sure.
and we'll move right into work session with IT. I don't think it'll.
Guys.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a great one.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting this together. I kind of called this because we have to make this change, and I wanted to understand what it means, what they're looking at, and how we monitor it, so we don't lose sight of it down the road. So I appreciate you coming in.
Okay, Mac McCoy, Director of IT. So I want to start off with kind of giving the level set on what it actually is.
Okay.
So the Web Content Accessibility Guideline 2.0 was developed by the World Wide Web Consortium to improve the digital content for people with disabilities. Under the Title II of the American Disabilities Act, the Department of Justice requires public entities to meet those standards at level AA. And that would be particularly the first slide here, is what I just kind of covered. So because Cowlitz County has over 50,000 in population, or over 100,000 in population, we have to meet that deadline by April 24th. But there's more to this once I allow Calvin to give you an update on where we are. Moving on to the next slide. There's no questions for the first slide. So this is this here is a service, a risk mitigation, and also a modernization. In Cowlitz County, 15.6% of the residents in Cowlitz County live with some sort of disability, and that's those that are under the age of 65. So it's imperative for us to actually improve the accessibility so people can have access to county resources and lower the compliance risk and also have a better experience for all users. Any questions on that?
Yeah, how somebody with a disability, how do we improve their ability to get to the internet? Is that, I mean, is that what we're talking about? Or our website and the services offered through our website and how they interact with our website?
The latter. So we're talking about accessibility on our website, the ability for someone to use digital tools like screen readers or other ADA assistive devices to fill out forms, get access to public services, while meeting the needs of their disability.
I don't know if your microphone's on.
Is it on now?
There you go.
Okay.
So it would be like, well, a blind person, that it's going to read the text to them?
Yes, sir. They use a screen reader. There are several available. Some of them are even cooked right into the web browsers that they use. But they read the web page in a specific structure that requires specific tagging inside the HTML code that makes up the website in order to know the order to read it in. Otherwise, it could jump all over for them, make it difficult for them to understand the material, or possibly there's an image or an indicator to click on a link or use a button that isn't properly assigned the right tagging in the web page. We make it difficult for them, or impossible in some cases, for them to utilize our websites and get access to services.
So are these mandated minimum requirements that we have to meet?
Yes, sir.
And do we currently have any of this on our system?
Yes, I've actually been aware of this for about a year now and been working to ensure compliance across our websites. As of last night, when I ran a report, the tool that I built using Google built a backend accessibility software that I plugged into with a tool that looks at our websites. We were at 92% compliance across the board, which is really good, like really exemplary. Civic Plus, the provider that we're using, provides a very accessible tool set for our county offices to use, and that's what they're all, except for Superior Court, using right now to build their website. And we are bringing Superior Court in as well as of last week, so they will be also under that umbrella, which should give us all a nice tool set to use to enable the people of the county to access the websites and the departments to build accessible websites.
Okay.
So the screen reader software, is that something we have to provide on our end? Or is that something they have to have on their end and it just has to be able to read our site?
The latter. They will have their own screen reader, what software that they're comfortable with that's installed on their machine, and then our websites being compatible with that, or being up to the standards set forth by this ADA Title II
Yeah.
will work with that.
That's what just clicked for me too. It's their equipment.
Right.
It just has to be able to access our system in a way that it makes sense.
That's right. That's why it's important for our websites and
Gotcha.
public facing stuff to be built in a very specific manner, such that their equipment or their tools that they're using can interpret it in the way that they need to be able to.
I was flashing back to like in the banking industry I came from, our ATMs, they have where they can braille or they can hit a button that talks to them. And I'm going, how are we going to make our system do all that? But it's just the opposite. They have the stuff, and it's just.
So we just have to make our system receptive to theirs.
Right. And that comes in, like I said before, like, I'm already auditing. We already have a vendor who's providing us services to build our websites. What we need is training we need a training that's available for the people of the district who are building these public facing websites and web hosted documents, so that they know what good looks like, where to go to for help, and how to remediate if there is a finding.
So if there's a blind person who only speaks Spanish, he has to have the software on his end, but it has to be able to read our English and translate for him.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing this. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a project.
Yeah. And it sounds like IT has the ability to, if we said, hey, would you check it for us every 6 months and make sure we're in compliance, you can do that?
I absolutely can provide that report to you.
Okay.
At whatever interval you would like. That was one of the questions that I had coming in today was, how would we like to do that as far as reporting intervals? If you would like that in quarterly or semi-annual or monthly, I can run it as often as you need, but I feel it's important that we meet the needs of the.
Yeah. And I think the way you set out, you want to have, I don't know if I want to call them experts, but you want to have a knowledge base in each of the departments on what needs to be done. But I always think it's, as people turn over, it's nice to be able to verify, which is what you'd be able to do.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That actually he just triggered a question in my mind. So you're having to go through all of the electeds office and everything and have conversations with them about what type of experience they're wanting people to have on their specific website? Like, let's say the auditor. Do you work with the auditor on her webpage or is there a standard that's given to us by the state or the federal
There's a
government?
standard that's given to us by the DOJ for this, and then the individual departments are able to build their website as they see it to meet their needs and the needs of their customers in accordance with those standards.
So can I just frame this in the right way a little bit? So what our plan is to actually identify accessibility leads for each department, train those staff, and then move forward with helping them with the compliance. And some of that training is going to be videos as well. One of the things that we want to do is create videos and actually upload those to our LMS so they can go there and do on-demand training. So that's kind of one of the plans to get staff up to speed.
Who creates that training content?
That would be Calvin.
Okay, so we create our own.
Yes.
Okay,
At this time, with the deadline being the 24th, seeking out vendors who have training for this and stuff, it would be difficult to vet them. Plus the cost may be prohibitive given. And we have specific needs here in Cowlitz County that may not be addressed by that. So in internal discussions in IT, we felt it was beneficial for us to make our own.
okay.
So to circle back on what Calvin was saying earlier about the websites being in 92% compliant, the primary focus for us now is the high impact stuff like the forms, documents, and department level content, and then content management.
So I'm sure there's probably at least a dozen different software manufacturers out there that all have their own screen reader specialty program that people can go out and buy for $20 or $120. If you meet the federal compliance or state compliance, are they required to also meet a compliance to be able to use it? Because I can see where their software might not necessarily work with what you're doing for us, our end of it. So don't they have to have a standard also that says that they can, that their software has to meet a certain standard to be able to work with ours?
I think,
Oh, go ahead.
I think there has to be, yes, and also there has to be a level of communications with users that goes to the platform. For instance, that we would have like a link at the bottom of the page to say, contact us if you're having an issue with, your access, to show that we're in good faith trying to remediate those particular situations.
That's correct. Yeah, they do have standards. There will be one-off cases, I'm sure, where people have either out-of-date software that they're using or an older piece of hardware that maybe isn't built to the current compliance standards, and they may have individual issues that we can work with them as needed using the mechanism that directors.
I mean, I really don't have to go through the whole entire, I kind of laid it out there, but.
Yeah, right. No. That helps a lot. Anything else? I think that helped a lot.
Okay,
Appreciate your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, you said that we're not gonna hit the compliance and we had an exception or something like that, but by the deadline?
So what like I was saying earlier, one of the things that we're trying to do is that, so if someone goes to a website and they have an issue, they can go to a specific link and they can actually submit a form to where they can actually call us and find out how we can help them. So we have to be able to right size that and work with the departments to figure out what that is. We have to actually get that remediated and laid out. One of the other things too is with the Department of Justice, if we show good faith, then that's defensible in their eyes. Just kind
But
of.
we're 94% compliant, you said?
92%.
92?
On the website.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm good.
Okay, we will adjourn. Thank you.